Flames snapped in the space separating them, throwing shifting silhouettes over her features. Yet the manner in which she grasped the rosary felt distinctly unnatural. An hour prior, Windrider discovered her kneeling near a deceased horse in an isolated expanse. Her dark religious garment was ripped on the shoulder, its beads strewn across the sand like tiny fallen stars. She identified herself as Sister Dawnrose Valewhite, hailing from the San Miguel mission. However, missions did not dispatch their nuns unaccompanied into Apache lands after dark. Her gratitude for his help was expressed in words that seemed practiced and insincere. Still, her gaze contained mysteries that sent a chill over his skin, a mix of dread and allure. Upon questioning her survival for 3 days lacking water, she merely smiled, replying, "God provides." Yet her lips showed no signs of chapping. Her complexion was not burned by the sun, and her hands lacked the roughness of someone digging in the desert grit. The most peculiar thing was not her flawless condition or her timely narrative. It was how she observed him when she believed his attention was elsewhere, analyzing his actions as if committing them to memory. And as the breeze changed, bearing the smell of faraway smoke, she made no inquiry about the source of the blaze. She was already aware. Windrider stirred the embers, launching sparks into the starry expanse, trying to dismiss the notion that their meeting was anything but chance. For inside his saddlebags, enveloped in oiled fabric, lay a letter addressed to her. It was a letter he had not seen until this evening, penned in an unfamiliar script detailing facts about his ruined ranch known only to 3 individuals in the region. Yet, Sister Dawnrose Valewhite was officially deceased, based on the mission archives he had consulted 2 months prior. The missive seemed to possess an unusual weight as Windrider's fingers outlined its shape through the leather pouch. Sister Dawnrose remained completely motionless on the other side of the flames. Her hands were clasped as if in devotion, yet her eyes stayed open, locked onto him with a focus that constricted his chest. The firelight highlighted the graceful line of her neck where the garment had shifted, exposing skin that shone like polished ivory. "You appear distressed, Mr. Frostbloom," she murmured, her tone possessing a depth unlike any nun he had encountered. "Maybe a confession might alleviate your troubles." He pulled his hand sharply back from the saddlebag. She was aware of his name, despite him never having offered it. That understanding struck him like icy water. Yet, ere he could reply, she moved nearer to the flames, and he detected the fragrance of jasmine mixed with the wood smoke. A woman enduring days in the arid wilderness ought not to carry the scent of blossoms. "How are you aware of my name?" News spreads quickly in sparsely populated regions. Her fingers manipulated the rosary beads with expert skill, yet he observed her progression was incorrect, moving counterclockwise rather than the customary prayerful route. Especially concerning men who have been ruined by fire. The muscles in his jaw tightened. His property had incinerated 3 weeks prior during his trip to town for provisions. Upon his arrival back, only cinders and the sharp odor of kerosene were left. It was the type of blaze that consumed too hotly, too rapidly, and too intentionally. The sort that necessitated careful preparation. "Describe the mission at San Miguel," he requested, probing her narrative as one might explore an injury. "A lovely location, with stone barriers substantial enough to repel worldly enticements." She gazed straight at him, her smile bearing an element that warmed his blood, countering the desert cold. although I have discovered that the most formidable barriers are frequently the simplest to overcome. Wouldn't you agree? The way she spoke about temptation brought concepts to his mind unrelated to devotion. Her mouth shaped every word with meticulous attention, and as she dampened them with her tongue's tip, he caught himself inclining closer, unconsciously. "Why did you come to the desert, sister?" "The identical reason you did, I presume. A quest for the truth." She rose with elegance, circling the fire in his direction, her garment brushing softly over the sand. "Yet, occasionally we discover more than we anticipated." As she knelt next to him, near enough for him to sense the heat emanating from her form, she reached inside her garment and extracted an object that made his heart pause. It was a fragment of burned wood from his ranch, etched with his father's initial. "Inform me, Windrider," she murmured, her respiration warm upon his ear. "Do you have faith in divine retribution?" The singed piece of wood dropped from Windrider's shaking grasp onto the sand. His father etched those initials on the day they acquired the property, vowing it would remain with the frost blooms eternally. Now it survived merely as proof held by a woman professing to serve the divine, yet who moved with the likeness of sin. "From where did you acquire this?" His tone emerged harsh and menacing. Sister Dawnrose stayed kneeling near him, so proximate he could discern gold flecks in her dark irises that appeared to shimmer with their own illumination. "Is that important?" "The important thing is that an individual desired for you to possess it." Her fingers grazed his wrist while she talked, and the touch sent a jolt of warmth up his arm. "Someone who understands precisely what you have forfeited. You are not a nun." The declaration slipped out before he could halt it, freighted with 3 weeks of fury and bewilderment. "Nuns do not journey unaccompanied through Apache territory. They cannot endure the desert lacking water. And they absolutely do not transport evidence from incinerated ranches." Instead of refuting it, she smiled, and the look altered her features from lovely to utterly perilous. "What revealed my deception? Was it the jasmine scent or the detail that I have not once requested you join me in prayer?" He ought to have felt rage, ought to have insisted on explanations. Yet his thoughts were consumed by the curve of her lips as she smiled, the way her garment had slid lower on her shoulder, exposing the pale incline of her collarbone, and how every impulse shrieked that she was danger. All the while, every nerve within him pleaded to discover exactly what sort. "What is your true identity?" "Someone who has been searching for you, Windrider Frostbloom. Someone aware that 3 men incinerated your ranch as you bought provisions that, by coincidence, required double the usual time to load." She drew designs in the sand separating them. Her motions were mesmerizing in the glow of the fire. "Someone who knows you have been making inquiries in all the saloons between here and Tucson, seeking those men." The reality struck him like a corporeal impact. "You are aware of who destroyed my ranch." "I am aware of numerous things." She inclined nearer, and he detected another drift of that heady jasmine fragrance. "I know Ashby Brightshield compensated your supplier to stall you on that day. I know Ironheart Riverstone furnished the kerosene. And I know Bramwell Shadowcross struck the match that annihilated all your father constructed." 3 names he had pursued for weeks, provided by a woman attired as a nun in the center of the wilderness. It seemed overly opportune, excessively flawless, yet the manner she uttered them with calm assurance and a semblance of empathy compelled him to accept every word. "What is your reason for telling me this?" Her hand shifted to lie upon his chest precisely over his heart, and he sensed the ground move beneath him. "Because, Windrider, occasionally divine justice necessitates decidedly human hands." Her hand stayed firmly on his chest, sensing the quick tattoo of his heart under her palm. The warmth of her contact felt like it seared through his shirt, marking him with a desire unrelated to retribution and entirely related to how she gazed at him as if peering directly into his soul. "Justice," he echoed, his voice just louder than a whisper. "What sort of justice?" "The type that equalizes the scales." She retracted her hand gradually, intentionally, allowing her fingers to trace down his chest prior to removing it entirely. "Ashby Brightshield possesses half the banks in this region. Ironheart Riverstone provides water to all ranches in a 50-mile radius. Bramwell Shadowcross commands the telegraph system." She rose and started to pace beside the fire, her motions liquid and predatory. Individually, they are prosperous men with immaculate reputations. Combined, they have been methodically ruining small ranchers for 2 years, acquiring the land for trifles following timely mishaps. The components locked into place in his thoughts like the chambers of a revolver. My father's property was not the initial one. The seventh. She halted immediately opposite him, the fire flickering between them. "But it shall be the final one, provided you are willing to assist me in halting them." "Assist you?" He rose, reducing a portion of the space separating them. "Ma'am, I am not even aware of your actual name. As far as I am concerned, you could be collaborating with them." The chuckle that slipped from her lips was deep and perilous. "If I was collaborating with them, Windrider, you would already be deceased. They commanded your termination 3 days prior." She reached into her garment once more and extracted a creased paper. $50 for the individual who delivers proof of your demise." The wanted notice displayed his name alongside a crude drawing of his features. An individual had sketched an X over his forehead using red ink. His hands tightened into fists as the situation became clear. He was no longer solely pursuing them. They were pursuing him. "My true name is Dawnrose Valewhite. I was betrothed to marry Bramwell Shadowcross 2 months ago." Her tone now held genuine and visceral pain, "until I learned what he and his associates were perpetrating. Until I discovered my father's demise was not accidental." The glow of the fire moved over her face as she proceeded. "They believed murdering him would persuade me to wed Bramwell swiftly, cementing his status in New Orleans society. They never anticipated that I would investigate." She gestured to the false religious attire she had on. "They absolutely did not expect me to vanish from my own betrothal celebration and pursue them over 3 states. Then you are not pursuing heavenly retribution. You desire vengeance. I desire both." She shifted nearer once more, and on this occasion as she regarded him, he perceived something that seized his breath. It was a vulnerability concealed under all that perilous loveliness. "But I am unable to accomplish it by myself. They are excessively powerful, excessively connected. The sensible course of action would be to depart, abandon her to her plots, and seek his own route to revenge." Yet, as she extended her hand and outlined his jawline with a single finger, all notions of security vanished from his mind. What precisely are you requesting I do?" "Assist me in annihilating them entirely." their public standing, their enterprises, their very lives. Her thumb grazed his lower lip, and he resisted the impulse to seize her hand with his mouth, beginning with the man who ignited the flame that consumed your father's dream. Ere he could reply, the noise of oncoming horses reverberated through the desert, and Dawnrose's demeanor shifted from alluring to lethal in a moment. Dawnrose acted with astonishing swiftness, scattering sand onto the fire, leaving only incandescent embers. "Retrieve your rifle," she hissed. Her tone had altered from enticing to authoritative. 3 horsemen, possibly 4, they have been following us since sundown. Windrider seized his Winchester from near his saddle, the steel feeling cold on his hands. "How are you certain they are pursuing us?" "Because I was anticipating their arrival." She reached under her garment and produced a derringer, its pearlescent grip shining in the starlight. "Bramwell dislikes unresolved matters, and I am the most unresolved matter he has ever faced." The galloping sounds intensified, joined by quiet voices drifting on the nocturnal breeze. Windrider overheard snippets of talk, sufficient to realize these were not ordinary travelers. One person spoke his name. Another individual chuckled regarding easy money. Dawnrose pushed her body against his back, her respiration warm upon his ear. "When I provide the cue, you will handle the one on the left. I will manage the remaining 2. You intend to manage 2 men with that minuscule firearm?" Her lips grazed his earlobe while she talked. "Windrider, my dear, there is much you are unaware of regarding me." The manner she uttered, "my dear," caused warmth to gather in his gut, notwithstanding the lethal peril drawing near. The horsemen appeared from the gloom, dark figures outlined against the starry night. They were 3 armed men, advancing with the assurance of those familiar with violence. The front man lifted his hand, indicating the others should disperse. "Frostbloom," the leader called out, "we are aware you are present. Make this simple for all involved." Dawnrose's hand located his shoulder, pressing it one time. He could sense the tightness in her form, wound like a spring prepared to uncoil. "Remember," she exhaled, "the man on the left." "What of the woman?" one of the horsemen inquired. "Shadowcross instructed us to return with evidence that Frostbloom is dead." He mentioned nothing regarding witnesses. The leader's chuckle was frigid and unpleasant. "It is a pity to waste such an attractive nun." That, however, is when Dawnrose acted. She emerged from behind Windrider, lifting her hands in a gesture of surrender. The derringer was concealed within her palm. "Please, sirs, I am only a sister of mercy. This gentleman provided me shelter from the weather." The leader eased his posture somewhat. This was precisely her intention. "Sister, you have chosen the incorrect guardian. Move aside." "Certainly." She advanced toward them, every movement measured and fluid. "But initially, may I present a prayer for your souls?" The leader guffawed. "Ma'am, where we are dispatching your companion, prayers will be useless." "You are correct." Dawnrose's tone lowered to almost inaudible. "They will not." The derringer materialized in her hand as if by magic, and her initial shot struck the leader in the chest ere he could draw. Windrider's rifle cracked nearly in unison, felling the horseman on the left. The third individual turned his horse, attempting to escape, but Dawnrose's subsequent shot struck him in the back. 3 men were deceased in fewer than 10 seconds. Windrider gazed at her with astonishment and mounting apprehension. This was not fortune or desperation. This was practiced proficiency. "Where did you acquire the skill to shoot in that manner?" Dawnrose strode to the spot the leader fell, collecting an item from his jacket pocket. I informed you, Windrider. There is much you are unaware of regarding me. She raised a telegram, and despite the faint light, he could decipher Bramwell Shadowcross's signature at its base. The query is, she proceeded, rotating to face him with a look that was both lovely and frightening. Are you prepared to learn? The telegram rustled in Dawnrose's fingers while she recited it aloud, under the faint starlight. Target verified as living. Terminate without delay. Compensation upon evidence of death. No witnesses. Shadowcross. She glanced up at Windrider, and within her eyes he perceived something that constricted his chest. He is intensifying matters more rapidly than I anticipated. Windrider secured his rifle in its holster. His mind was racing. 3 deceased men were strewn about their encampment, and this woman, who materialized from nothing, had just exhibited lethal abilities befitting someone much more perilous than a mourning fiancé. What is your true identity, Dawnrose? She strode to her horse, a splendid black mare previously concealed in the darkness past the camp. From her saddlebags she extracted garments that made him gasp. In place of the nun's attire, she removed a tailored black riding costume designed to display every contour of her figure. Turn away, she ordered quietly. What? Unless you desire to witness precisely the degree to which I am not a nun. The defiance in her tone sent warmth surging through his veins. He compelled himself to face away, yet he could discern every rustle of material as she altered her clothing behind him. I was employed by the Pinkerton Detective Agency for 3 years. Her voice transported clearly on the desert air, focusing on infiltration and removal of criminal enterprises. My father was not simply murdered, Windrider. He was probing Shadowcross and his associates on behalf of the government. The sound of shifting fabric persisted, and he resisted the impulse to look over his shoulder. Therefore, you are a federal agent? I was, until I learned my father's demise was commanded by the very men funding my salary. Acrimony laced her tone. It seems Shadowcross possesses allies in extremely high positions. When I attempted to disclose my findings, I was suddenly accused of thieving evidence and targeted for termination. Thus, you resolved to manage it personally. I resolved to vanish and manage it personally. The noises of her changing ceased. You may turn back now. He pivoted and almost found himself unable to breathe. Vanished was all semblance of spiritual modesty. Dawnrose was before him in skin-tight black leather that clung to every contour. Her dark tresses were released from the habit's confinement, cascading in waves about her shoulders. She appeared as a gorgeous weapon, lethal and compelling. Better, she inquired, though her smile implied she understood precisely the impact she was making on him. You are going to lead us both to our deaths. The statement emerged more harshly than he had meant. Likely. She advanced nearer. Near enough that he could observe the moonlight mirrored in her eyes. But what a manner in which to perish! Her fingers outlined the buttons on his shirt. It was not entirely intimate, yet it suggested something that quickened his pulse. The query is, Windrider Frostbloom, are you prepared to jeopardize everything for an opportunity at true justice? His hand enveloped hers, securing it against his chest. What, precisely, are you suggesting? A collaboration, your familiarity with the region, my talents in infiltration and termination. United, we annihilate Shadowcross and his associates before they murder us both. Her unoccupied hand shifted to lie against his jaw. her thumb grazing his cheek. "But I must know if you can manage collaborating with a person such as myself. A person like you." Her smile was absolute sin. "Someone highly adept at acquiring what she desires, employing any means required." She inclined nearer, her lips nearly brushing his ear. "Someone who has contemplated kissing you from the instant you discovered me in the desert." Ere he could reply, she drew back just sufficiently to lock her gaze with his, and he detected a vulnerability in them that caused his chest to hurt. "But first, I must know, when I pose that question to you later this evening, what will your reply be?" "What query?" Dawnrose's inquiry lingered between them like haze from an extinguishing fire, and Windrider felt ensnared by eyes containing mysteries he was uncertain he wished to uncover. The manner she regarded him, as if committing every facial detail to memory, caused something untamed and careless to awaken in his chest. "The question I have desired to pose since I witnessed you emerge from that cloud of dust to locate me." Her hands shifted to his shoulders, her fingers gripping the material of his shirt. "But initially we must address our pressing issue." She indicated the deceased men. "These three will not be noted as missing until the morrow. But when they are, Shadowcross will dispatch more, superior ones. We must be in a different location when that occurs." Windrider compelled himself to concentrate on functional concerns, although her closeness hindered his thoughts. "An abandoned mine is located roughly 10 miles south. It has a strong defensive posture, a water supply, and several escape paths. Perfect." She shifted away from him, and he instantly sensed the absence of her warmth. "We will recuperate there tomorrow. We will devise our strategy." She started pulling the first corpse toward a natural hollow in the stones. "Assist me in concealing these, and then we depart." Collaborating to hide the proof of their lethal meeting fostered a closeness he had not anticipated. Their hands grazed while shifting rocks, their forms pressed together as they guided the corpses into place. Each inadvertent contact sent warmth surging through his body, and judging by the alteration in Dawnrose's breathing when he reached past her, he was not the only one impacted. "There," she stated, moving back to inspect their efforts. "By the time anyone discovers them, we will be far away." The wilderness extended infinitely around them, painted silver by the moon and saturated with a quiet that amplified murmured words. Dawnrose approached the spot he stood near their horses, and an element in her look caused his mouth to feel parched. "Before we venture into what awaits us," she said quietly, "I must ascertain something crucial." She advanced nearer, near enough that he could sense the heat emanating from her form. "I must comprehend the true nature of the man you are." Her hands shifted to lie upon his chest, and he could sense his heart pounding under her palms. "Because the task we are undertaking jointly will demand complete trust. The sort of trust that requires understanding someone entirely." "Dawnrose," his voice emerged harshly. "I have revealed my true self to you," she went on, her tone lowering to just above a whisper. "I have slain 3 men in your presence. I have confessed to being a skilled assassin pursuing vengeance. I have informed you that I am pursued by the very government I previously served." Her hands shifted upward to cup his face, her thumbs outlining his jaw. "And despite all this, you remain." The instant extended between them, electrified with potentials that might ruin them both. As she resumed speaking, her words bore the gravity of all that was unsaid. So inform me, Windrider Frostbloom, she exhaled, her lips so near to his that he could sense her words upon his mouth. Do you fear me, or do you desire me? The inquiry hung in the desert atmosphere between them, and every impulse he had shrieked contradictory responses. For a pulse beat that spanned an eon, Windrider gazed into Dawnrose's eyes, witnessing his own image trapped between luminescence and shade. Her query remained in the air like a dare, like a vow, like the most perilous statement he had ever encountered. Both, he stated at last, his voice hoarse with candor. I ought to fear you. Any rational man would depart from a woman who slays as if breathing and deceives like poetry. His hands moved up to envelop hers where they lay against his face. But I have never desired anything more intensely in my existence than to discover what occurs when I cease being rational. The smile that bloomed on her lips was brilliant and dreadful. That is precisely what I was anticipating you would say. When she kissed him, it bore no resemblance to the soft touches he had envisioned. Dawnrose kissed him as she did all other things, with total dedication and lethal accuracy. Her mouth tasted of flame and whiskey and vows that could annihilate him. And he returned her kiss, channeling 3 weeks of sorrow, rage, and want that had accumulated since the instant he witnessed his father's ranch turn to cinders. When they eventually separated, both gasping for air, she placed her forehead against his. We cannot reverse this, Windrider. Once we journey together, once we trust one another implicitly, we cannot feign this is only about vengeance. I know. His thumb outlined the contour of her cheek, amazed at the gentle skin belonging to hands proficient in killing. But I require you to understand something as well. When this concludes, when Shadowcross and his associates are dead or ruined, I do not want you to vanish into the darkness like some lovely phantom. Her gaze scrutinized his face. What are you implying? I am saying I forfeited everything I deemed important when they incinerated my ranch, my father's vision, my future, my position in the world. He drew her nearer until no gap remained between them. But perhaps certain things must incinerate before one can construct something superior. Dawnrose's hands gripped his shirt in fists. Oh, Windrider, what we are preparing to do will render us both outlaws, federal fugitives. We will never possess an ordinary life. Since when has either one of us been ordinary? He kissed her once more gently this time, yet with no less intensity. Besides, I would prefer to be a pursued man beside you than a reputable man lacking you. The rumble of faraway thunder moved across the desert, and Dawnrose drew back to survey the horizon. Not thunder, more horsemen approaching quickly from the town's direction. Shadowcross was dispatching reinforcements already. It is time to depart, she stated, though her gaze never wavered from his face. Are you prepared for this? Truly prepared? Because once we begin, we do not cease until every last one of them is dead or destroyed. Windrider vaulted onto his horse, then extended his hand down to assist her in mounting. The sensation of her hand in his, the trust inherent in the action, solidified something between them that felt more permanent than any wedding oath. Let us conclude what they initiated, he said. Dawnrose smiled, and within that look he perceived the vow of justice, retribution, and a destiny he had never ventured to envision. Bramwell Shadowcross has no concept of what is approaching for him. They journeyed south toward the derelict mine, abandoning the corpses of their foes and any illusion that either of them would surface from this unaltered. In the remoteness, the noise of pursuit intensified. Yet, for the first occasion since his world incinerated, Windrider Frostbloom was not fleeing from his destiny. He was advancing toward it with the most perilous woman he had ever encountered at his side. 6 months afterward, Windrider stood upon the veranda of his reconstructed ranch, observing Dawnrose care for the horses in the enclosure. The morning light captured the gold in her hair, and he continued to feel that accustomed rush of heat each time she regarded him with that knowing grin. The bounty notices displaying their names had been retracted 3 weeks prior. It is astonishing how swiftly federal accusations vanish when one provides proof of governmental corruption to the correct newspaper editors. Dawnrose's Pinkerton instruction had been indispensable in recording every bribe, every unlawful land acquisition, and every murder Shadowcross and his associates had arranged. Bramwell Shadowcross perished in his prison cell, seemingly by his own action. However, the guard was inexplicably missing for precisely the duration required for someone proficient to make a murder resemble a suicide. Ashby Brightshield forfeited his banks after federal agents confiscated his assets, and he had escaped to Mexico instead of confronting a trial. Ironheart Riverstone was discovered deceased in his well, struck twice in the back of the head by unidentified individuals. Justice, Dawnrose had termed it, both divine and decidedly human. The ranch was altered now, larger than previously. They had purchased the adjacent lands from appreciative families who received compensation for their losses with funds confiscated from Shadowcross's holdings. What was formerly his father's humble aspiration was currently a flourishing enterprise that employed half the region. "You are pondering too deeply again," Dawnrose remarked, ascending the porch steps with that liquid elegance that still seized his breath. She had exchanged her black leathers for functional ranch attire, yet she continued to wear her firearms. "Some customs are difficult to break. I was just reflecting on the extent of the changes." He drew her into his embrace, amazed as usual at how flawlessly she fit against him. "1 year ago, I was merely another small landowner struggling to survive. And presently I am a rehabilitated outlaw possessing the largest ranch across 3 counties. I am wedded to the most perilous woman in the region." He kissed her temple, breathing in the scent of jasmine and gun oil that was uniquely hers. "It is not precisely the existence my father envisioned for me, but it is the existence you selected." Her arms wrapped around his waist, and he sensed the accustomed warmth that accompanied her touch. "No regrets?" Windrider gazed over the land they had constructed jointly, acquired with blood and secured with trust. In the remoteness, he could observe their employees managing the cattle. These were men who had forfeited everything to Shadowcross's plots and discovered new meaning here. They were good men who posed no inquiries regarding their employer's history and gained loyalty via truthful labor. "None," he stated, intending it absolutely. "Although I do possess one query I have been intending to pose." Dawnrose drew back to regard him, her eyebrow arched in the look he had come to recognize as trouble. "Just one." He grinned, sensing he was younger than he had been since prior to the fire. "When unfamiliar riders approach inquiring about the proprietors of this property, and you grin that specific smile of yours," he outlined her jawline with one finger, "do you suppose they fear us, or do they desire us?" Dawnrose's laughter was deep, warm, and brimming with promises for their time ahead. "Both," she replied, repeating his exact words from that evening in the desert. "And that is precisely how I prefer it." They embraced on the veranda of their reconstructed dream, two perilous individuals who had discovered something worthy of their danger. And Windrider was certain his father would have felt pride in what they had constructed from the cinders.